I'm Matt Wilhelmi. I'm the owner of Strategic Voyages Business Consultants. I'm also the author of Taboo Business Questions, What's Haunting Every Entrepreneur's Growth. And today I'm joined by Kristen McAlister. She is the co-owner and president of Cerius Executives, brings over 15 years of experience to the business space. And I just feel really honored to be able to spend some time with you today, Kristen. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Matt, for having me.
So Kristen, we've been chit-chatting a little bit about this particular case study, and I wanted to kind of recap where we're at. We're in episode 3. We're about to talk about some solutions, and the solutions are to some specific issues that you and I were able to identify in our first episode. And so just to give folks a quick recap, this is a university board. I actually had the opportunity of meeting one of the members at a function that I was at, and they asked me to help them kind of grow their entrepreneurial program within their university. And what I uncovered was that there was some dysfunction in the board, and what you were in tune enough and astute enough to kind of observe and know, perhaps just intuitively, you've kind of been there, done that. You've seen a number of these different issues. Were really kind of 3 key areas. Number one, oftentimes there's presenting pain, but then there's maybe a root cause, and they're not always the same. And so we do kind of need to figure out maybe what is that root cause. You use the term outcome-based thinking, which I just absolutely love. But the second one was getting the board, kind of on the same page. It sounded like there was an issue with cohesion, perhaps accountability. That's probably pretty normal, and there's dysfunction in the board, but that was an issue that you identified. And then the last one was really kind of this issue of overall a lack of accomplishing even just minor tasks towards a bigger picture. And so when you start to have a lack of traction in the organization, morale comes down, engagement comes down, a lot of other problems. But Kristen, now that we've kind of summarized those issues, how would you approach this problem? What would be some of those recommended solutions? You've been here. These are probably not the first time you're hearing about some of these issues in a board. And so what would you do as one of the experts that we're talking to about boards?
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt. And I think looking at it from a perspective of, if I were to coach an interim executive consultant, the person who's going in to work with them and to make sure that they are as successful as possible in working with this board. So the first thing is what we talked about in one of the earlier episodes is understanding outcome-based thinking. What's the outcome they want? Their individual meetings with the board members, understanding why they're on the board, and coming to an agreement with the board and hopefully a subcommittee of a smaller group of decision makers. What does success look like? Where's the end point? What do we want out of this? We talked about, is it additional funding resources? Are we doing this to increase enrollment? Are we doing it because we need to expand our offering because the 5 other universities in the area are expanding it? If we start with how are we going to get there and we're not clear on, we think getting there is putting the program in place. To me, that's like the Domino pizza tracker. I think that this is the greatest invention ever. Well, this will go into my second point. I promise I'll make a point with this. And that is, when we look at pain, problem, solution, you don't know where I'm going with this. So Domino pizza tracker. I order, I can see exactly what's happening as it's going on. They deliver it to my doorstep. The reason why I ordered it is because I was hungry. Them getting it to my doorstep does not solve the original issue of I'm hungry, I'm hangry at this point, and I need to eat. So not only does it need to get to the doorstep, I need to eat it, and I need to not be hangry anymore. And I go through this example with organizations to really understand the distinction of implementing an entrepreneurship program. Is that going to get us to where we want to? Is that the end state, just implementing it? Or is it, why do we want to implement it? So we really need to understand that outcome and get everyone talking about that outcome. That's what we're solving for, not the implementation in that program is the how we're going to solve for the outcome. So that's step number one. Do you want me to continue on, or are you just, where are we
Well, of
going?
course, but I think at this point I might need to pause and order some pizza. I'm getting hungry.
Everyone hungry now.
Oh my gosh. But no, I think the Domino's tracker is an interesting invention just because like my kids, they'll want to order pizza and then they just want to like sit by the phone and just like stare at it until the pizza shows up at their door, which is kind of funny. But anyway, I would love, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And that's the step number two. And that is now, as we create the path to get there, and as we start to implement that plan, in order to create that result that everyone either agrees on or disagrees. Not everyone is going to agree, but even if you disagree, are you going to support it? Do I have your commitment to support that destination? Here's the plan. And when you've got multiple decision makers like a board, what's your Domino's pizza tracker? How do they know where we're at right now and what we're doing next? What comes next? And how is that communication being ongoing, consistent, and transparent with them? How are they able to see where we're at and what's coming next? And those bottlenecks and the risks that we talked about, they can see, are we in jeopardy of hitting a bottleneck? Are we in jeopardy of hitting a risk? And when do they need to be up to bat to say, you need some additional support. We want to get them teed up. So I just love that visibility for where we at, what are we doing next? And then you get that third step of, and how are we measuring that? Because as we know, the implementation.
That's my language, Kristen. Well, when you start talking about measuring things, I have to sit up a little bit straighter in my chair because now we're talking about metrics. So yeah, I mean, I love measuring it, and I want to know, how are we measuring the process? Are we measuring the people? Like, I think it's important to delineate because you get into some trouble sometimes if you're trying to measure the people. That's called micromanaging. And if you can measure the process and the people execute the process, then you're coaching a process. Then you're investing in the system instead of, well, today we decided to do it this way because this is how I felt, today. And that's not repeatable. And that's, again, called micromanaging.
I love the saying, be hard on the process, not the people. What you're measuring is the expectation that you want them to get to. So especially as a board, how are we going to measure that outcome that we want? Is it in enrollment numbers in this program? Is it the additional corporate sponsorships or engagement level? What's that one number that we know we've won? Because you and I both know that we excel to the level that we're measuring. If you don't measure, you don't know what you need to get to, and you don't know if you need to push it just a little bit more. And are we measuring the right thing? And is it a leading versus a lagging? We'll save that to a whole other episode where you and I can go geeking out on leading and lagging indicators. It's why I so much love for finance experts like yourself. And that then goes into the communication. No one loves anything more than a dashboard. And where are we at? We've set the expectation of what each person's role is in this, and especially with a board, they need to understand their role and have their expectations, as well as myself as an expert coming in to help. And then how are we measuring? And then that's how we know feedback. I may need to go back to the board and say, guess what? This initial assumption, we got it wrong. The numbers are telling us we're supposed to be up here and we're over here. We've got to adjust. We thought incorrectly at the beginning, and then it's easier to get everyone's buy-in on that adjustment because it's just one big feedback loop and iterative steps to get to the end game, and you're showing them the path for that. Did the pizza not come out fully cooked and we need to put it back in? I can see it going back in the oven for another thing. Did someone turn down the oven by accident? We need to be able to see little blips and misassumptions in the process. So I could go on forever on that setting expectations and how are we going to measure it. I think the basic assumption in getting to that solution is everyone in agreement or supportive of the outcome? How are we communicating and keeping everyone updated on that outcome and where the process is and what the plan is? And then how are we setting the expectations and measuring it? You have those three components, Matt, I think you can accomplish anything.
Wow, Kristen, I mean, obviously you've been an advisor to a lot of different organizations. You've built some yourself, and it kind of shines through with this advice. It's always interesting to me how simple the solutions sound when you're able to clarify the issues perfectly. And I'm not saying that we're perfect, but in a general sense, when we're doing consulting work and we're trying to get to the bottom of some of these issues, the solutions almost sound like a no duh. Why didn't I think of that? But the reason you didn't think of that is because you didn't properly qualify that issue, ask the right questions. And so it's great to hear, that you're, patient enough and intuitive enough to kind of ask those proper questions, setting up, obviously these solutions, but it also just positions yourself as an expert on the topic. And so I feel really fortunate to spend some time with you today, kind of unpacking this case study. Again, I'm here with Kristen McAlister. She's the co-owner of Cerius Executives, 15 plus years in the industry, providing interim executive support for a number of different organizations, and just really kind of blown me away. So thank you so much for your time, Kristen. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to talking with you again soon, maybe even over some pizza if we can get that on the books.
I would love it. Thank you so much, Matt.